I'm Amber Davies and welcome to Call to Stage. This is the space where musical theatre takes centre stage. From unforgettable backstage stories with incredible special guests to insights from my life and my theatre journey. We're leaving it all on the mic every single week, so let's jump in. Hi guys, welcome back to Call to Stage with me, Amber Davies, Broadway Edition. I have someone incredibly special sitting next to me, and he is actually, I feel like I'm going to cry. He's actually the reason why me and my sister even thought that this industry was a possibility. It's the wonderful Mark Evans.
I'm going to cry.
I'm crying.
Just cry for 30 minutes.
It's because I haven't seen you in so long. But it feels like I saw you yesterday, you know what I mean?
That's social media for you.
Yeah, I know what you do. I know what you're up to. Now, I ask this to all of my clients.
I'm a client of yours now, am I?
Sorry, I'm still in Vivian Ward style. I'll just hook her
Great,
every
I'll take
day.
it.
All of my sessions. Pick any role you've ever played. What would be your pre-show ritual?
Oh gosh, it's so different for everybody. It really depends on what is required. I'll pick, my favourite role that I've ever played was Robert in Bridges of Madison County that I did last summer.
Yeah.
A really small 6-week production. Jason Robert Brown's music and Marsha Norman who'd written the book. So it felt like I was in a two-hander play, but with this sweeping score. So for that, I would do physical vocal warm-up. A lot of it is like dropping into breath and that sort of stuff. But it was mostly because he was a National Geographic photographer. Do you know the show?
No.
He's a National Geographic photographer who basically comes to ask for directions to this farmhouse and has an affair with the woman who lives there. So he's very sort of artistic and sees everything in pictures. And I would just spend the last 5-10 minutes before going on stage just writing like stream of consciousness. Like leaves, green, calm. And like, it's really weird just to take my brain into a bit more of a sort of like visual artistic place.
I like particular place.
Yeah, and it was that, so I found that with that role was really effective. And then I'd stumble into like, oh, I've been noticing green a lot. So then I would just pay attention to anything green that night to make it really sort of alive and authentic that night. But it just depends. Like there are other times I'm like, I don't even need to warm up. I don't even need to think. I'm just going to go do it.
Yeah. Have you ever had a superstition? Like, I have to always touch this certain part of the set? Or
No, because I would go crazy. The first time that I started with that, my first lead role was Troy Bolton in High School Musical.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did do that.
Yes. And in order to drink enough water, I conditioned myself to only drink in gulps of 5.
Oh.
So it's like 5, 10, 15, 20, and it got a little bit crazy where like I would almost miss an exit because I was like, 3 more gulps.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm kind of obsessed with that.
I was
wacky.
very hydrated and peeing a lot.
That interval would be spent in the bathroom. Now let's go back all the way to the beginning. So you grew up in North Wales. We come from the same area, although you are a little bit older than me.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
So like we never were in school at the same time.
But we went to
with
the
Jade.
I don't think so. I mean, I'm 39 now, so like we can do the maths. But like,
maybe
it felt like we were
okay.
just we went to the same high school and the same dance school.
Dance school, Adele Mead School of Dance
In Denbigh, North Wales.
Fiona, Miss Fiona, shout out to you. We love you. It's still up and running. It's still there. Yeah. Like, that's so wonderful.
I was the only boy in that dance school for the entire time that I was there. I started, I think, around 11, 12, and then went to college when I was 16.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know, the only boy in the entire area in North Wales that I knew was doing any dancing.
Yeah, I literally remember the same. I remember being really young and we'd do a summer show.
Yeah.
Every 4 years, was it? It was every 4
years.
And I remember being really young and looking at this one male out of this sea of women, and you were just like so confident and amazing. Like, I'll always remember like that vision. Remember in the hall downstairs?
What, in the town? In the Wait, which hall? The town hall where we were doing the shows?
No. So where we used to do Adelme School of Dance upstairs, there used to be a big hall downstairs where we used to...
yeah.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I feel like I remember seeing you for the first time.
Yeah, you were so little.
I was tiny. I think I would have been like 4.
Big bushy curly hair.
Yeah, and I wouldn't speak. How did you discover the route to go to London?
That was, to answer your question initially, it was Miss Fiona who said there's this college, Lane Theatre Arts, in Epsom, just outside of London. They're doing a summer school. And back then, you couldn't like go on a website or anything. So she would call them on the phone, ask for a prospectus to be sent. So they'd send a hard copy like thin catalogue. And then you would like have to call them and ask for them to send an application form for you to submit for this. So I went and did a summer school at Lanes when I was 15.
Right.
And that's when I was surrounded by people for the first time who were like me, lots of other boys were there, and just seeing like, oh, this is something that you can do as a career. Because we didn't really... Dancing and singing, there's a lot of access to music in Wales, but there was never really access to understand that you can do this professionally and get paid for it.
Nope.
And it was always just a hobby. That just made me think like, oh, I want to do this. So I went to Preston College for a year to study dance because I was a little bit too intimidated to go to London at 16.
Straight away.
And
like a pre-voc, really, then.
Yeah, it was also like government-funded college, so we couldn't afford to go to Lanes. My dad's a farmer, you know, like my mum's a farmer's wife and a waitress. So I went to Preston College, but it was a 3-year course, but by the end of the first year, I was teaching some of the third years. So I'm like, this is not really pushing me. So that's when I applied to Lanes to go there. But it's the only college I knew about in London because of that summer school experience.
Okay.
So I went to Lanes.
It was perfect for you, though.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Where did your voice come into it?
Did you work with Eirlis Dwyrid at Tomornant?
I didn't personally, but I know who she is.
Well, she was the music teacher with the primary school that you went to, and someone was fired from my primary school in Canryder, and they brought in Eirlis once a week to do some choir stuff, and she noticed that I could sing, so she gave me a solo, and the first time that I sung publicly was dressed as a snowman at Summerfield supermarket in Denby, and I was singing Eira dros y byd, like walking in the air in Welsh, dressed as a snowman. And we were late. My mum was just going back and forth up the aisles waiting for me to come to an empty trolley.
Come on. My car park ticket's going to run out. That is absolutely gorgeous. Did you ever do the Eisteddfod?
Oh, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I did a lot. Yeah, the last Eisteddfod that I did was when I was 16, and it was in Denby.
It was in Denby.
And I swept. I won so many things.
Did you?
I
bet
did,
they're
actually.
all in your home.
Yeah, I won the disco
Back
dancing
home.
competition as well. Tara Bethan was the adjudicator.
It's crazy. Not the disco dancing.
Yeah, I had a Welsh flag on my back.
That's pretty epic.
And now I'm on Broadway.
Life comes at you fast, babe. Life came at you fast. Talking about summer schools, I do want to touch base on Welsh of the West End, which was a summer school back home where we live. This was one of the first memories for me of a big opportunity that came our way for us young people.
Well, that's why I started it.
Yeah.
Like, because of that summer school that I did at Lanes, that gave me the access to know that, like, that existed, that opportunity existed. So I wanted to bridge the gap and bring that to Wales. So yeah, West End in Wales, I did it for 6 years, started in 2006, I think, and would have continued. The only reason I stopped doing it was because I came over here for a job.
I think I did like 4 years running.
Yeah.
And on my last time, I don't know if you'll remember this.
Oh gosh, where are you going with
You
this?
awarded me the most promising pupil that summer.
Wasn't I right?
I was
like,
about...
this kid's going to be on Love Island.
She's got that look.
She's going to be an ice skater one day.
Yeah, you awarded me most promising pupil, and I had 6 free singing lessons. That was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I could
Oh, that's sweet.
do this.
And that wasn't just my opinion. We would have, so there was 6 or 7 of us on, like, that I would bring teachers.
Yeah.
And we would sit down the night before the last day and actually discuss, like, who's getting what, who do we think, like, will benefit from this, and who is most promising.
I couldn't believe it.
And I think Jade got an award, like, the year or two prior, too.
I don't think she did. I think it was just me.
You.
I think I'm
Okay,
the
sorry,
most
Jade.
promising.
Yeah, Jade wasn't very good, was
No,
she?
she wasn't. No, I am the most promising Davis sister. No, of course she did. Now let's talk about your early career. How quickly did real life hit you after Lane? Or did you have an easy time auditioning? Because obviously, looking at your first 2 shows, amazing, Brother Caleb, 7 Brides, 7 Brothers, and original cast of Spamalot, as a swing,
Yeah.
I had no idea that was the case. You were in First Time Wicked cover Fiyero.
Yeah. And then went
So
back later.
in some way, you really worked your way up.
Yeah. To be honest, my entire career when I was living in London was pretty linear and progressing the whole time, really.
Naturally.
Yeah. I did the tour of 7 Brides, and then, was a swing on Spamalot, went into the ensemble of Wicked, covering Fiyero, and then from there got High School
Troy.
Musical.
What was the clip for you that changed mindset of I want to lead, I'm
Well, I
ready
remember
to lead?
being in the wings. I was on for one of my tracks in Spamalot one night, and that was amazing. But I just felt like I'm good at my job, but I know that anyone, like many people, could come in and do what I can do right now, and I want more responsibility. And I didn't know if that meant going more towards directing and choreographing, because I love the creative side of things, or towards playing lead roles. And I was like, I'll figure that out. My next job was Wicked, and I was second cover Fiyero.
No
So I
way.
got on once in the whole, 12-month
wow.
contract. And it was that night that I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And I kind of wish now, because I'm doing more directing work now, I kind of wish that I hadn't felt like I needed to make a definite 100% decision, because you really can,
Have
now
ma-
more than ever, do both and some. I'm so much
my
more
God.
multi-hyphenated now.
Yeah, you can have your fingers in all the pies. I really believe that. You give yourself more opportunities, the more open you are to
Yeah.
things like that. And then, so your first leading man role was an iconic one. Troy Bolton in the original cast of High School Musical. During the time High School Musical
was
huge.
Yeah.
I came to see it. Me, my sister, my
I think I
mum.
remember that.
Oh my gosh. Was that a moment for you in your career where you're like, okay, I'm definitely at the right place at the right time?
I felt very lucky with that.
Yeah.
I'd worked my arse off, but like it really felt like, it was just the perfect job. Like to play that role for 9 weeks at the Hammersmith Apollo. And it's what is it? It's called something else now. But yeah, 3,500 seats of theatre. We did 9 shows a week.
Did you?
Yeah. And it was also like the first opportunity that I got to be a leading man, and you know that like leading a company is so much more than just having the most to say and sing. Sort of like inspiring the full company and leading by example, but
And the
also
morale of the building.
managing my voice. It was a big thing.
And it was physically big, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's basketballs all over the place.
I wonder how many basketballs fell into the pit.
There was one. So there's this moment where the basketball is like halfway through, get your head in the game, fell from the flies. So there's like a click, doof, and then like a really impressive moment. But as the run went on, they were creating little like dents in the stage. So they'd fall, like 9 or 10 of them, doof, and then they'd all bounce off in different direction. You'd just see a load of like Twinkie gays just like, I'm trying to get my basketball. And I was like, there was one time when I was supposed to be like really impressive, about to do the last like shot, and I would bounce it and it hit my toe, and then like a child chasing after a ball, it was rolling on the stage, I'd go down to get it, it'd keep rolling. Like, so embarrassing.
But I love those moments.
Oh, me too.
They
Yeah,
are like
I live
the
for them.
moments I live for them. Now, we do have something in common.
We have a lot in common, babe.
Oh, yeah, we do. Oh, yeah, wait, hang on. What was I thinking? We both have done reality TV.
Yeah.
Which, when I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, you did do
Yeah.
this. You did the Eurovision Song Contest, Your Country Needs You, on BBC, and you were a finalist.
Yeah.
And you placed third.
Yeah.
should have won. The Welsh should have won.
Sure. It's so funny because my British agent used to say, was the last male vocalist of the competition and the second runner-up. I'm like, second? I was third.
No, well...
Don't try and sell it.
We're going to sell it.
Okay.
The second runner-up.
And the last male vocalist.
And the last male vocalist.
Yeah.
How did that fall into your lap?
So while I was doing High School Musical, I auditioned for a pop group. We're kind of a crossover band where it was going to be... So Amy Atkinson, who was in Six,
Oh.
me and her, and forgive me, but Melissa, I can't remember the other two, but the four of us. It was going to be like a crossover, mixed gender, kind of like Josh Groban style music, where it's a little pop, contemporary edge, but musical theatre too. We went into the studio and tried some different things, and we were just waiting on contracts, and there was just something that didn't feel right for me. I wanted to ride off of the momentum from High School Musical. I'm like, I don't just want to be waiting around for Universal to like come figure things out for us. So I did a Ginger Spice and like left the band before we even did anything. Called them like, hey, I quit. But the casting director of that said, I'm casting this thing at Andrew Lloyd Webber's doing the Eurovision Song Contest. We're trying to take it seriously this year and trying to make an impact. We're doing a reality TV show about it. And I was like, oh, okay. And actually, beforehand, my agent and I discussed and said that the best case scenario would be to get to the final and not win, so I get the exposure on BBC on Saturday night, but then be available for other stuff, because I still wanted to do theatre. But then during the process, when the production assistants are like, so what would it mean to represent your country? And I'm like, actually, that would be cool. So I did get swept up in it, and I was disappointed when I didn't win.
You?
But then the next 2 weeks afterwards, I got 7 auditions for different things, and I had fast-tracked from, being in the ensemble and then playing Troy to being in auditions with respect, all the rejects from X Factor and the Joseph Show and all of that. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm in that category of people now.
Yeah. But I feel like at that time, because I had Sophie Evans on here, at that time, the theatre producers around town, around tour, would eat you guys up.
Yeah.
They wanted you, So at that time, it was such a smart
Well, it was the
idea.
exposure was the thing, because
Yeah.
social media wasn't anywhere near then what it is now, where you can create your own content and actually generate that for yourself if you're smart and savvy. Being able to have access to be in people's homes.
Yeah.
So one of the next jobs I did after that was the tour. I did Rocky Horror Show.
Yes.
But then I did Oklahoma, and I was on the posters as from BBC's Your Country Needs You. So it's like that bums on seats value to your name. Apparently the casting director, I don't know whether it's true or not, but a friend of mine said, he called a random house, just picked a number in the phone book in Birmingham and just said, do you know who Mark Evans is? Just to test how much value there was to my name.
What did they say?
I'm assuming they were like, love him. Bring him here. Cast him.
Let me book my tickets. And then you went back in, after Oklahoma, you went back into Wicked as Fiyero, which we saw you.
That felt like a full circle moment where I was like, oh yeah, I was in the ensemble and I went away and I did my due diligence. I did the work, I did the graft, and I came back. And
you took risks as well. And I do think in this industry you have to take risks at times. And then another thing I came to see you in.
Oh, Ghost.
Ghost.
Still one of my favourites. That was hard.
Was it?
Hard work.
Who was your Molly?
Siobhan Dillon. Dreams.
Oh my God. I want to eat her up. I want to eat both up.
Yeah, I did during the show.
Love it. Who was your producers? Colin Ingram?
Colin Ingram, yeah.
I just worked with Colin.
Well, yeah, because they were talking about Back to the Future way back then. And they were considering getting me in for a workshop of it there. I was like, I am not the right casting for this.
What, you was Marty McFly now?
Yeah, Doc now.
You would be an amazing maybe you're too tall.
I'm too young.
Oh yeah, I'm too young. Sorry.
Yeah, that was great. It's an interesting story, or at least I think it's interesting. I was in Wicked and I went to see the original West End cast with Richard Fleishman and Casey Levy. Mm-hmm. It was a matinee. And I was like, I want to do this. So before going to Wicked that night, I went to a music shop and bought a guitar, taught myself to play Unchained Melody, and I texted my agent saying, I've just bought a guitar, I'm going to be in Ghost. And I didn't even know that they were in the casting process. It was very fast that they ended up bringing the show to Broadway. It didn't work here, I think, because they did it too quickly. And so they were already trying to figure out whether they were going to take Richard to Broadway and whether there was going to be an opening there. So literally 2-3 weeks after I bought this guitar, I was in auditioning for the role.
Oh my God.
And then, so that was in the November, and I started rehearsals in January. I was terrible at playing that song on the guitar.
That was an amazing show though.
Yeah.
And do you feel like then you have strong gut instincts about things? Or is it just I want to do this, so I'm going to do everything I can to get it?
I'm going to do everything I can so that I stand the best chance of getting it and trust that the rest is out of my control. You know, I run my own acting studio now. It's what I say to my students all the time is you want to live with no regrets. Do the best that you can. Invest the most you can in the auditions. And if you don't get it, that's a statistics game. It's just because you're not quite
so
what they're
you run
looking
that
for.
here in America?
Mark Evans Studio. I started it last year.
Oh my gosh.
So, obviously, because of West End, I've been teaching for over 20 years.
Yeah, you have.
And I just never thought that it's something that I'd be able to fully do alongside my acting career. Because what happens if I book a job, I have to shut down the whole studio. And I was like, no, that's just limiting beliefs. And I'm a parent now, so I have to be able to provide for my family with more consistency.
Yeah.
I can't just wait for Broadway to call.
No.
And so, a year ago I committed to it. And now I'm working on a show. So most of the classes are taught by other people, which is great.
You really do the most. That's so nice though. Yeah. You never just sit and, like you said, wait for Broadway to call. You go out there and you make the most of life.
Yeah, but with that, I think is part of the reason why I have been fortunate with my career is that if you put yourself in a position where you don't rely on it, there's not as much of a grip on it. I need this. I need this. It's I tried to put myself in a position where I can be a bit more selective. I would like to do this.
Yeah.
And that it's something that, because especially leading a company or playing big roles, it's a big sacrifice in your life too, to be I'm going to prioritize this and do it 8 shows a week, unsociable hours. So it is a big decision.
And now I just want to ask, how is that shift in becoming a dad?
I mean, it's amazing. But the perspective of I feel like I question things so much more now. It's I have so much more respect for my parents.
Yeah.
And empathy for them, for what they went through. I'm more nervous now, I think, in life than I was. I feel a heavier responsibility to obviously provide for my family. And it's an added full-time job alongside my other 2 full-time jobs and being a husband. It's a lot. It feels like such a cliche when people say it's an indescribable love. And what my therapist has been really good at sort of conditioning me to understand is the ambivalence of something. I always thought the word ambivalence meant that you don't really care, but it actually means that you think multiple things at the same time. And there are many times where I love and hate my child at the same time because she's really testing my patience, but she's adorable at the same time. And it's just fascinating to constantly be navigating that.
And also bringing up a child in a country where your childhood was worlds apart from this.
And that's the thing. She has a weird accent because of me. My husband's from South Jersey, so he's got an American accent. But even the school system here, it's not I'm raising a kid and going through the upbringing that I had. I still don't really understand the school system here. She's not in school yet. She's only 2.5. But if someone said, I'm in 5th grade, I have to go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You were 10 years old.
Yeah.
That's my little trick to understand sort of the age that they're at. And so, it's just weird. Culturally, people talk about pre-K and kindergarten and all this stuff. I'm like, what is it?
Yeah, I have no idea.
And I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But she's going to be raised in a very, very different way. She says water, shirt, but then she'd be dollhouse.
Will she?
Yeah.
Dollhouse. Now let's talk about you coming over to America. To me, this is just insane and every West End person's dream, You originally came over here to do the American tour as Elder Price.
Just for 6 months. They tried to get me for a year and I was I don't want to give up. Because the truth be told, I was told I was going to be originating it in London. but they couldn't find an Elder Cunningham to join me.
Okay.
And they strung me along for a long time. I did 13 auditions for that show.
Oh my gosh.
Including being flown over to New York to workshop it here with a potential Elder Cunningham from London. He didn't end up getting it. We landed back in London together and he got the call saying, you didn't get it. And I'm like, did I get it?
Yeah.
They're still not giving me a contract, still not giving me, they told me I was going to be doing it. Anyway, long story short, they were struggling to cast an Elder Cunningham over there. They found Chris O'Neill, who I ended up doing it with here, at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Oh,
but
wow.
he's American. So they were like, well, why don't we bring those two over here? And then they knew that they had a great partnership. And I replaced Gavin Creel, wonderful Gavin Creel, on the national tour here. Gavin and Jared were amazing, and they got such amazing response when they opened the national tour. So they were like, we know that's safe. Let's bring them to London. Let's bring Mark over to America with Chris.
Yeah.
So, but I was like, I'm not going for a year. I'm only doing 6 months. But I ended up doing 3 6-month contracts, getting my green card while I was doing it, and I've never gone back.
I was going to ask.
It's 13 years nearly.
So you've been here for 13 years.
Yeah.
Did you have to be in a show to get your green card, or could you have done that independently?
Could have done it independently. It's much easier and I think quicker to be like, because basically what you've got to prove is that you are an alien of outstanding and extraordinary ability, and that you would make America a better place by them having you here, basically. And there's the letters of recommendation from people that you have to, it really is very American in
wow.
Mark is the best talent we've ever seen. It's a very good ego boost.
I will be coming to you then if I ever need a recommendation.
Absolutely. She was the
Summer
most
school?
promising student at West End in Wales. To have already been employed in America is enough evidence, I think.
Okay. You then have gone on, just to name a few, Singing in the Rain, The Fix, Mary Poppins, The Book of Mormon, The Bridges of Madison County, which you mentioned before, Finian's Rainbow.
Yeah. So what you're mentioning are all of the regional and the off-Broadway gigs, because it did actually feel like, I mentioned that the career trajectory in the West End was pretty linear and it just kept growing. And after being on tour, I moved to New York, but no one knew who I was. And I was 30 years old, and I was like, am I really going to start again? It was really hard going into casting offices and being like, nice to meet you. I'm Mark Evans, when I had a reputation in London.
Yeah.
But then I flipped it and was like, oh, I know who I am much more now than I did when I was 21. I get to actually introduce them to the version of me that I want. But it did feel like I was like, Broadway was this club that I was just on the outside of, like, hey, can I come in? Can I come in? So
that didn't last very long, because you then went on to play Crispine, The Play That Goes Wrong.
Yeah, that was my debut.
Was that your debut?
Yeah, that was amazing, to be in a British play and to be in a play.
Yeah.
Having done musicals most of my career. That was really, really special. That's probably one of the biggest highlights of my career and my life, was standing on stage doing the opening speech at the Lyceum Theatre, being like, oh, and because The Play That Goes Wrong, because I'm the associate director of it at New World Stages now.
Oh,
so
are you?
I'm still involved in it 7 years later. And the premise is that it's, for those who haven't seen it, it's a group of amateur actors putting on a play, and everything that could go wrong goes wrong.
Yeah.
But every night is opening night for them. And so you go out and you're like, oh my gosh, this is high stakes and it's amazing. So that genuine feeling of my Broadway debut opening night was unreal. No acting required.
No. Shitting myself.
Yeah, literally.
Mrs Doubtfire, Waitress, Titanique.
Yeah, which is about to open in London.
I know, that's why I wanted to talk to you about it. Is it amazing?
Oh, it's brilliant.
Okay.
It's a hoot.
Is it a hoot? There was no role in there for me, I don't think, so I wasn't seen for
You'd be a good Rose, I think. You're
don't know if
funny
I'm
as well.
cool
You'd be a good
enough.
Celine.
I'm not Celine yet, my love.
What do you mean?
No, I'm still young.
Yeah, but like...
I'm still like, I class myself as like secondary school, high school casting.
Okay.
I don't. I actually got told the other day I was too old.
Was that the first time? Get used to it.
Was sad.
Yeah. I'm very much... That's one of the things that I like about having a kid, is that when they tell me that I'm dad age, I'm like, yeah, I am actually. Because I have a child.
Yeah.
But I've also been like wanting to be in my 40s since I was in my 20s, because there's more interesting roles. I turned 40 in January. I'm like, finally.
I am my casting age. Let's talk about Mrs Doubtfire. Did you take over the role?
No, I originated it.
You originated it?
And that's one of the things that like is really interesting here. I don't know if it's the same in the West End. It didn't really used to be. but they don't really audition for Broadway shows, generally speaking, because they start with like a reading of something and then a developmental workshop or a lab and then an out-of-town tryout and then a Broadway production.
Okay.
Point being, unless you know the people, it's really hard to get access to join something from the ground. So the producer of The Play That Goes Wrong invited me to do the 2-week reading to play Stuart. Did it, and I did a good job of it. So then I was asked to do the out-of-town tryout and then Broadway. And we came in and like broke box office records in Seattle, had a huge advance, but did 3 previews and then the shutdown happened for the pandemic.
Okay.
And then when we came back, we did 7 weeks of previews, and then we did our opening night, and half the cast, because they had this 2,000 people in a big party, and half the cast got COVID.
Oh, God.
We cancelled 10 days of performances leading up to Christmas. And then they announced January 2nd, on my birthday, that they were going to close a week later and do something unprecedented. Try again so this was in January, try again in, I think, April, when tourism had picked up again, because it was a family show. So you still were required to get a COVID test for anyone under 5. They shut the show, tried again in the spring, and that's when my daughter was born. So we were in Arizona with our surrogate, who was about to go in for a C-section at 7 o'clock the next morning. 12 hours before, the producer called me and said that Doubtfire was closing in 2 weeks. So I was like, great, become a parent, don't have a job. So yeah, Doubtfire was special, but it was very turbulent and very traumatic.
Yeah, and also a lot of your time was spent in building that from the ground.
I will say that during the shutdown, so what did it end up being, about 19 months between when we shut down and coming back, I was one of the fortunate few that knew that I did have a job to go back to. So I actually pivoted and was working as a real estate agent during the pandemic.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, and learned a lot about that. But it's just weird. I'm like, I've identified myself as an actor for all of my life, and all of a sudden when the industry's gone, at first, I think for all of us, it was kind of lovely to just be like, let's just disengage for a minute. Yeah. But then I just felt like I'd lost my identity and found it really hard, my relationship with the industry. It's interesting because I finished our second preview the other night and I found myself going like, I love this. And I think I've been trying to train myself to like distance myself from it because it is so fickle and because it is so unreliable and it's inconsistent. It would be easier, so much more convenient to hate it or not want to do it anymore. And I think that's part of why I wanted to set up my own acting studio and do other stuff. So it was like conflicting feelings of like, oh shit, I really like this still.
Well,
but that's lovely too.
Yeah.
It was really lovely.
That is okay. Also, kind of shit hot that you can now sell houses in your spare time. Like, you have so many things. I'd love one, actually.
Come live here.
Yeah, I will, after you get me my green card.
Yeah, I'm going to be busy.
Yeah. But I just think it's, like, so just clever. You're so clever, and you've literally opened another avenue there. Makes me think I want to do more for myself.
I think you're doing pretty well, babe.
I could be doing more, though. That's like...
I mean, everybody could be doing more, but that's also... I mean, we could do a whole other podcast as to where this drive comes from in me. Being the only gay boy in North Wales, where there was no one else like me, considering myself not really worthy of love, or just being so different that the one thing that I was going to have people talking about was how impressive I was and how talented I was. That has got me places, but it's also a big sort of psychological thing that I had to figure out. Because then when I was doing Book of Mormon, and if my voice was going, it's like, oh my gosh, who am I if I'm not the best version of myself? And it's taken a lot of work, the last 10 years really, coming to terms with like, oh, I don't have to be impressive. I can do things because I want to do it and because I can do it, not because I need to show the world that I'm amazing, because that's fucking exhausting.
I love that, though. That is so real. Yeah. Now, I've got a few more questions, but I do firstly want to touch base in the current production that you're in, Tammy Faye. Which we are coming to see tomorrow evening. I can't wait. I haven't seen you perform since...
Ghost, probably.
Ghost. Did you do Fiyero after or before?
No, before.
It was Ghost then.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'll just be sobbing the whole time. When did that become a option?
Tammy Faye. Well, to sort of like contradict what I just said, it was really nice. I got on. They'd already announced that it was coming to reopen the newly renovated Palace Theatre, which has been closed for 6 years, and that Katie Braben was coming over to play Tammy Faye. She did it at the Almeida and won the Olivier for it. And I was like, oh, that's great. I can't wait to see her do it. Then got an audition for it. I'm like, oh, an actual audition for an actual Broadway production that is happening, and it not just an out-of-town tryout or whatever. It's a smaller role than I have done in the past. I have this big moment at the beginning of the show, and the rest of the time I'm kind of like, peace out. Yeah. As a dad, it's lovely to just be like, have an easier gig. But yeah, I auditioned a couple of times, 2-3 times, I think. And then the offer came in soon after. It was one of those when you must know this feeling. A lot of people as actors do. When you walk out of the room, you're like, I got that.
Yeah, pretty sure that's mine.
Yeah. And so it's cool. It's a great creative team. Rupert Gould, artistic director of the Almeida, and Lynn Page is choreographing. Jake Shear's written the lyrics. Elton John's written the music. And it's great music. You know what I mean?
Is it?
Like, yeah.
I love to go to a musical and have no idea what it's about, the storyline, the music. I want to go in. My canvas is completely free.
That's great.
I love that.
I'm intrigued to see what you say afterwards.
I will send you a 4.5-minute voice note of exactly what I thought.
All my notes.
Yeah.
Do this better.
Yeah. Babe, you need to
Sing
work on
higher.
this. Anchor here. 2 questions I want to ask. What advice would you give an actor who has a little seed in their mind that, oh, maybe I could go across the pond? Obviously, it takes a lot of money.
The main thing that I would say, because the grass is always greener, I have a lot of my American friends who want to go work in London too. The main question is why? Do you think you're going to be happier when you go over there? Because you're going to have just as many like struggles and strife there as you do here. Like, it's so easy to convince yourself that if I depart this version of my life, I will be happier, it will be more prosperous, there'll be more opportunities, there'll be more money or whatever. Yeah, just be genuine, just be honest with yourself. Am I doing this because I want to, or because I think that like I should?
Yeah,
like,
it looks good.
Exactly. I get to post on social media about how wonderful my life is, because it's not easy.
No.
And it's actually at times very, very difficult to be away from not just your friends and family, but the culture that you're used to, the lifestyle, like food. You know, like Christmas is different here. Like Halloween is so huge here in a way that it isn't necessarily. Those sorts of things that, like, when you actually decide to live somewhere different, it's a big deal. At least it has been for me. So being honest with yourself and doing it for the right reasons, as opposed to just because you feel like you should.
How often do you go home?
Try and get back once a year, usually twice.
Nice.
My mum's living with dementia, and has been
so
for like 7 years now. So I try and get back a couple of times a year, just to be frank, to make the most of time before she continues to deteriorate.
Yeah. But you talk often?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last question. Is there any possibility that we'll be able to be graced with your presence on another London stage again?
Oh my gosh, I want to.
Oh, do you?
I was back in London in January. My husband and I were there for 2 days without Larson, our daughter. My sister was looking after her for a couple of days in Wales. I felt really sad. I was like, I don't know London anymore. It's been 13 years. Doesn't feel like it's mine anymore.
Really?
Yeah. I always described New York as like, it feels like New York belongs to everyone who exists in it. You know what I mean? Like everyone has moved here because of ambition or passion or something. And London was that for me as well. And I felt like, oh, London is my town in the same way that it's your town. And I was like, oh my God, Olenstein, where did they come from? Like, everywhere. Yeah,
Oh my
although
God.
those socials, very good.
I just describe New York as London on crack.
Yeah. Dirty, stinky crack.
Hammed up crack.
Yeah, there is just something. I understand the appeal for the Americans going to the UK, particularly to London, because they just don't have the history here. Architecturally, like culturally, it is really charming.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I still have my British agents, and I saw him, one of them last night. He was here watching the show. And for the right project. We're always looking for the right project to come back. It's just harder now, especially because I'm married and have a house here and have a child here.
But you're a real estate agent. You could put your house on the market to rent out.
I mean, the thing is that like this is home now, so it would be Like when I first came to New York on holiday 14, 15 years ago, I went back, I said to my British agent, I want to experience living and working in New York. And I thought I would transfer with a play for 3 months or something and then tick that box. I didn't think I'd move here permanently. And so now it's the other way around. I want to do something back in London that would be a limited run for 6 months.
Okay.
And ideally, to any producers listening, it would be before my daughter starts school. So we've got like a couple of years. You know what I mean? Because
hopefully we could do something together. You never ever know.
Yeah, let's figure it out.
We should do our own bloody show.
This is it.
We should produce our own show.
Yeah.
James, Poppy and I were literally talking about doing our own show. Look, we'll be in contact with your agent. Great. You would have to audition though.
Okay, great. My best 16 bars.
Self-tape.
Yes, I'm very promising.
Well, I just want to say this has literally been everything and more. You have not changed a single bit. You still have like your Welsh twang and
do I?
Yeah.
Because everyone says I have an American accent now, which is just stupid.
Me? No.
But also that is one thing that I'll say as well is like to make this podcast longer than it needs to be. When I first came over here, I felt a tremendous pressure to hold on to all of the relationships I had with my friends in London. And anytime they said, "Oh my God, you said pants instead of trousers," I'd be like, "Oh gosh, I'm changing." And then I thought, I wasn't absolutely happy there. And I'm here and I am changing and I'm becoming more and more of myself. And like change is a good thing.
Yeah.
To hold on to the identity of who you are, but to also just keep growing. I think it's an awesome thing.
I think it is. And I think you're glowing. I think you look so happy, like you're radiating. You're a father, you're working in Broad. What more could one person want, you know?
To get access to the Davies sisters a little more often.
I know.
Hug your sister for me when you see her next days.
I will.
And your mum and your nan.
I will. And thank you so much for listening, guys. Love you all.